Are live with Pittsburgh Golf Now's Par 4 post PGA Championship. Looking forward to a summer full of golf. I'm Matt Gajtka with Zach Weiss. We are separate but together once again here through the magic of Restream. Thank you for joining us, whether it be on Pittsburgh Sports Live or via my Facebook, my Twitter. We're getting out there live first, and also we'll post it right there on the website at Pittsburgh Golf Now. So, Zach, it's not that we lack for topics for sure. We didn't talk before the PGA Championship, but suffice to say, I wouldn't have said that Phil Mickelson was one of my favorites to win at the longest golf course to ever host a major men's championship. Kiawah Island was a huge challenge, and as it turned out, the guy who's just about set to turn 51 years old was the most game out of the group. Arguably the strongest field in golf, and Phil Mickelson pulls it off. Now, he did shoot that 64 at Quail Hollow a couple of weeks ago, so it's not totally out of the blue, but he also bombed in the final 3 rounds there in Charlotte as Rory McIlroy won. But in the place where Rory won in 2012 in the PGA Championship, Phil holds it together and then some for 4 rounds. So I'm completely impressed. I feel like he was even impressed. He seemed lacking words at some points after the round was over. I think even he had a hard time believing it, even though he said he knew it was possible. Otherwise, why keep working at his game? For me, this takes him to a whole different level, though, because, yeah, he won the British in 2013 and showed that he was more than just a guy who hits it high and is an artist around the greens. He's an all-around player, or he was back then, but he's recaptured his game now. And longevity is so impressive to me, and no matter the sport. And past age 50, I got to say, wow, for me, he's up with the likes of, say, Arnold Palmer now when it comes to the pantheon of the game's greats. So what say you on the matter?
Well, at least for me, with what I've seen in the last couple of years, I equated Phil Mickelson's game to that of a quadruple A baseball player. I mean, let's be frank with it. He showed promise, but it was normally in very short spurts and short intervals. It was not uncommon where he would lead after a round or he would shoot one good round, but then he'd be held back. And I think a lot of it just came down to the focus. But for Phil at age 50, going on 51, to have now won in 4 different decades, big prominent tournaments within 4 decades, is very, very unfathomable. But it comes down to trusting the process. And for Phil, that process was very unconventional, very much like we say that Bryson DeChambeau's progress and journey has been unconventional. A lot of what Phil has done, where he's gotten himself, as we've discussed before, in the best shape of his golfing career, which is an accomplishment in and of itself, to be able to do that on a course, to be patient, to maybe make a water ball was maybe his only real mistake. But I mean, the guy lost 2 clubs during the weekend, and he remained unfazed. For as big of a muscular guy as Brooks Koepka is right there, unfazed, he was going for, I believe, major number 5 on his own merit, and Phil just didn't give a damn. He played true to his golf ball. He stayed true to himself, and he finally made that commitment to himself and said, look, this is my chance. And he's furthering his own commitment now. I mean, yes, he's playing this week. He's +3 after 18 holes. But, I mean, the guy's taking a couple weeks off moving forward from there because he knows that this is probably his last chance to get that U.S. Open. And he's prioritizing that over everything, including a Memorial, a course where he's not had the best of success, but it's still Jack Nicklaus's tournament, and it's very tough to say no to Jack Nicklaus. But here's Phil Mickelson realizing this is his last chance, and I think when you have a result like what last week merited, he's going to take it very, very seriously. And I know he was also talking in his press conference pre-tournament this past week about getting his COVID shot as well and getting that situated, especially now with the crowd starting to come back as well with semi-regularity. So really for Phil, it was really good to see the win. The see it on 18 had me a little bit nervous for him, and it had Brooks more nervous than anybody, to be honest. I think we've had that discussion privately, but really good on Phil. He could have bagged it in after a couple of early bogeys on Thursday, and it would have been very understandable for him to do so. But he decided that the golf tournament couldn't just be lost on the 2 holes. There's still 70 more to play, and no one played those 70 holes better than Phil Mickelson did, and that's why he was lifting the Wanamaker Trophy.
He's got the driver under control. Boy, does he ever. He outdrove Brooks Koepka a couple of times when Koepka leaned on one. That I believe it was the 16th hole. Phil hit it 50, 60 yards.
66.
Yeah, 366. A few yards past Brooks, who's 20 years his junior, basically. So Phil has shown that you can get in great golf shape at, I don't want to say any age, but he has certainly extended that range of probabilities. It's fantastic. He's skipping the senior PGA Championship, like you said, to focus on preparing for the U.S. Open. He's playing Colonial this week down in Texas. Tough ball strikers course. The way he's striking it, he has a chance to win anywhere right now. It's really crazy to say because it was always the driver or occasionally just ball striking in general that was getting away from him. But he's focusing on width in the backswing and the follow-through. And it has given him a new level of consistency. And we all know you get him around the greens, he's still a wizard there. He still has all the shots and then some. And his putting has also been very consistent. So you add it all up, and it's a guy who won, and it was no fluke at a very difficult venue, a place that I hope that we see more of because Kiowa Island was quite spectacular. How about for the game of golf, though, Zach? I had our good friend Alan Saunders asked me a question this week, and I figured I'd bring it into the conversation here on the par 4. Is it good that a guy like Phil Mickelson is still one of the biggest stars in golf, despite being half on the Champions Tour and half on the regular tour? Does that speak poorly of guys like a Justin Thomas or a Brooks Koepka, who he played with, or a Dustin Johnson, to use a guy who's won a major more recently? Does it speak poorly of those guys because they haven't been able to reach that level? Or do you think that just makes golf more grand when you have players like Tiger Woods win 2 years ago at Augusta, or Phil pulling it off here? I tend to side with the latter because for me, the ability of players to have 30-year careers, even 40-year careers in the spotlight is a feature, not a bug for the sport of golf. I enjoy seeing different generations go against each other, and with the way that Phil's playing, it's no guarantee the older generation is going to get passed by in any category, let alone around the greens or distance or ball striking. You can still keep it going. So for me, I don't have an issue with it. I think it's really cool that you have this shared history with a guy like Phil Mickelson. Many of us, you and I, he predates our golf watching careers, but those a little bit older, they've watched him grow up along with them. So that's a benefit for me. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think when Jordan Spieth and JT and Brooks get to be 40 and closer to 50, they'll enjoy some of those benefits too. And also, Phil is an outlier with his ability to connect with the public. So I think it's a perfect storm there for Phil. I don't think it's an indictment on anybody.
No, and I think Phil's win really serves as a PSA because so many times in sports, even with golf, there's a senior tour. But really with golf doesn't, it's harder to age in the game of golf. You can see these 50-year-olds dueling with these 20-somethings, and in a given week, any week, golf is a crazy and a funny game. It's relatable. It's so relatable. I mean, 8 guys miss cuts 8 weeks in a row, and all of a sudden they're back in the winner's circle, and there's no real explanation for it. They caught lightning in a bottle, and Phil's PSA serves that it's never too late. If you commit to the process and you put a little bit of extra work in, then it goes a long way. I mean, even at the driving range in the week leading up, a few days leading up to the actual tournament, there were a lot of those young guns, and a lot of those guys were getting the attention of that from the gallery. And Phil's kind of doing his own thing, and it doesn't look like he's having a good range session. And all of a sudden, I mean, here's a guy that wins the freaking golf tournament. I mean, it's just a funny game. And really, Bernhard Langer said it himself very recently that he thought that there's going to be a guy in the 50s that would win a major. I mean, Steve Stricker was in contention for a little bit there, not first page leaderboard, but he still has plenty of game. And for a guy that's really consumed by the Ryder Cup right now to still be golfing his golf ball so well, I mean, good on him. And then Phil, of course, did Phil things. Like you said, Phil's an outlier. There's a lot of 50-somethings that just aren't going to be competitive. But, I mean, with the way that technology is in the game of golf, I mean, if you commit yourself like Phil has, I mean, who's to say that you can't contend? I mean, I don't think this week is necessarily the course for Phil. And I think that the first round at +3, where he's tied 70 or 80 something, I think that kind of proves that. Not to mention it's a big ask. You just had one of the biggest wins in your career, and now here you are so short time later where you did it with your brother on the bag. It was your first major without Bones on the bag, so that in itself was an accomplishment. You do it with your own blood, so that makes it even more special on top of everything else. So was there a little bit of a hangover? Sure. I mean, but it's so hard to fathom the emotional side of winning the golf tournament, and Phil coming to peace with the battle that he could go on a run, but that easily could be his last win as well, and he's going to savor that win, and he's going to try to continue to build off of it. But, I mean, this is such a special thing. I think that the young guys are going to continue to grow, but a lot of them just weren't really golfing their ball. Justin Thomas didn't have a good week. Spieth kind of lingered. Ricky Fowler showed a lot of promise. He looked like he was going to be going to Augusta next year, and then all of a sudden he bogeys the last hole, and that kind of ends that. But still, he finally showed promise that we've been looking for so long. And his journey is very similar to Jordan Spieth's in that respect. He's kind of had that hangover. He started to go back to some things that worked for him, and he's starting to see some results. And that's golf. Golf's a very funny game, and that's just how the game goes. And it could be anybody's week at any given time, and sometimes there's no real rhyme or reason for it. But that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes it so interesting. And I mean, even Tiger Woods, Tiger Woods has been through so many lives. I mean, the Big Cat's had 9 lives at this point. I mean, God bless, he's going through a really tough time right now. But, I mean, we know what he's been able to do, and he comes back and he finds his way. And, I mean, Phil found his way. And, I mean, you can't credit the guy enough for the belief he had for his team, for the belief in the values that they instilled in him that allowed him to succeed for, by and large, 72 holes with some outliers. But, I mean, it's a credit, and I think these young guys can learn something from Phil about how the importance of hard work, and maybe it's not mashing balls, maybe it's dieting better, maybe it's the mental game. And I think the mental game was what won Phil, what won Phil the golf tournament. That's a mouthful. Say that 10 times fast. I tried, I failed. But yeah, absolutely. But regardless of that, I mean, the credit goes to Phil for being able to go through, and I mean, hopefully he can do something because I mean, God willing, I don't know how he's playing this week. I thought his thumbs were going to be needing ice ups with how many thumbs up he gave. So, I mean, it's a credit to Phil, and it's a credit to everybody. It's a very popular win, and other than Kevin Strowman, I think everybody's really, really happy. Everybody was thanking him except for poor Kevin Strowman, who got left hanging. But it was a great golf tournament. Kiowa was a fantastic track. I mean, if they played the golf tournament in Kiowa every year, I would not be upset. I mean, the course definitely fought back, but it was fair. And in a time where a lot of golfers say fair or unfair, I mean, it's one of the hardest courses, and a lot of it was due to the wind. And on Sunday, especially, you saw that reverse wind, and guys were slow to adjust. I think Koepka being one of the biggest between that injury and battling that wind. You saw that consistent miss to the left, and really that's what made things very difficult for him. And then Oosthuizen was Oosthuizen, which is very, very much a flat line, but that's what it was. It was a flat line, and just Phil never seemed threatened, and if he did, he never showed. And I think the biggest hiccup was that 1-iron on the driving range the day of the final round, but which the fact he had a 1-iron in and of itself is a very rare accomplishment that shows with the wind that he was trying to figure something out. But, I mean, Phil had all the intangibles. He had enough answers, and it's hopefully his win inspires a lot of people. I mean, in sports, we've seen so many admirable accomplishments. Serena won an Australian Open pregnant. Tiger Woods won a U.S. Open on one freaking leg. I mean, of course, Ben Hogan in the car accident. I mean, it goes on and so forth. From there's just so many accomplishments, and this being the latest. I mean, a guy in his 50s with all this technology and all these young guns outdueling everybody and making it look rather easy is a very admirable accomplishment.
I think any sport would be happy to have a main character, if you will, like Phil Mickelson, who's as marketable as he is, who has the success that he has had on the field of play, and also just connects with people and is extremely popular. So, I mean, you're telling me that the NHL wouldn't love to have Sidney Crosby play until he's 45, or the NBA wouldn't love to have LeBron James until he was 45 or 50. It's just a matter of the physicality of those sports that it tends to prevent guys from competing into their 40s, let alone up to 50. So for golf, it's a blessing. And I wouldn't take it personally if I'm someone like Jordan Spieth, who is already immensely popular. I think Justin Thomas is not quite up there, but he's getting close. And Brooks Koepka certainly attracts a certain demographic, maybe ones who aren't part of the country club set. I would typically be part of that group, although, well, we can transition into shot number 3 here with Brooks Koepka and his struggles at the end of the tournament notwithstanding. Zach, he again shows the ability to rise to the occasion. That's part of his mystique, is that he plays better in majors. I think he and Louis Oosthuizen share that ability, but Brooks, of course, doing it with much more panache and much more success. The failings in the final round were tough to ignore, and it could be the issue with the knee. Couldn't quite push off and keep that club face open long enough to produce that signature power fade of his. But we're not talking about Brooks Koepka because of that. We're talking about him because of something from the Golf Channel cutting room floor, which somehow got leaked. I wonder who did it. Very interesting intrigue. I'd love to hear the story behind the story there. But If you haven't seen the clip, it's an outtake. Brooks Koepka is being interviewed after the round, and Bryson DeChambeau walks behind him, muttering something, and Brooks Koepka basically rolls his eyes, loses his train of thought, and says, "Can we start that over?" Along with a couple of expletives. So a very humanizing moment, I will say, for Brooks Koepka. I laughed and laughed at it the first time I saw it. But you know what, Zach? I also think that for all of Brooks's macho man persona, and I don't care about anything but winning, this leads me to believe that I think Bryson's starting to really irritate him to a certain degree. And maybe in that way, Bryson's winning the war of at least when it comes to off the course. I don't know about on the course. I guess we'll see about that. But Bryson has the most recent major. So that's my takeaway on that. Yeah, it was funny, and I think Brooks comes off very relatable. Who amongst us doesn't have someone that they find rather annoying in their field of work or at their workplace? But it turns out there is someone who can get under Brooks Koepka's skin, and it might be Mr. DeChambeau.
I mean, Todd Lewis is just such a professional, and for those of you who don't know how this stuff works, Golf Channel usually has, or whoever the rights holder is for the given round broadcast at that time, those interviews are almost always, more often than not, especially when not live, not filmed on the spot. So that was the first take. So when he was pitching everything, okay, Brooks, we're going to talk about the round. You could see there was already a trouble spot because Brooks is just glancing over at DeChambeau, and DeChambeau's hard to ignore enough as it is for a multitude of reasons. And basically, Todd Lewis is giving him the softball. Pretty much the classic take me through your round. What did you think of your round? The classic non-question, non-sequitur theater. And, I mean, Brooks just got simply distracted. And I think he very much resembled Aaron Rodgers to me. He gave me very much an Aaron Rodgers vibe. Oh, I just couldn't make a putt. I haven't been making putts for God knows how long. And then it seemed like Bryson was muttering something about his putting is what I believe it was. And Brooks just didn't want to hear it in that moment because as it is, he's trying to focus to tell Todd about the round. And of course, Todd's a pro's pro, and Brooks and him have that professional relationship and at least the trust in that sense where they're going to have this interview and it's quick and then it'll either air later in the round or because I think it was a major, it'll probably air on the live from or whatever. And they got Brooks for a couple quick quotes and that's it, to and through. One and done, whatever the case is. That's usually how those kind of interviews go. And they had to do the retake, as you mentioned, and they had, just because, I mean, Bryson was just going through. And credit to the Golf Channel person for airing it, especially because Brooks Koepka essentially gave it the okay at the end where he said, "Oh, I don't care, whatever you want to do."
Yeah.
I mean, this is the same Brooks Koepka that was complaining about the fans possibly running over his knee because he got kind of sucked into that whole multitude of that scene on the 72nd hole. And, of course, this whole thing is compounded between Bryson DeChambeau lifting cinder blocks in the gym and Brooks Koepka bemoaning the fact to Aaron Rodgers, "Hey, I'm sorry you got to be paired with that guy in the match." And
I didn't see that. Wow, I did. I totally missed that part.
And then it went on from there. And then Tom Brady's team was having fun on social media. And now everybody wants Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka to be paired at the U.S. Open because the USGA is known for being evil people when it comes to pairings. Where they'll
That's two past champions, though. They could easily get away with it. Just put those two and whoever else would have been recent U.S. Open winner. You could do that.
Harry Higgs has volunteered already to be part of the in the middle. I mean, that would be fantastic. Personally, just for my own amusement, I'd love for it to be Kisner, just for the sheer smirks that would go around the entire thing. He would have the right temperament for that group. Poor Phil got dragged in because he was in the match. He's trying to be Switzerland. I mean, the whole thing, in a sense, is very but in the same sense, golf has been, and media, with the way the media trains these athletes in general, both at the collegiate and the pro levels, a lot of time you just get vanilla. You don't really see that. And it's even more ironic now where things are more watered down. It's less in-person interviews that you finally get this. But, I mean, the warning signs were shown a year or two ago when everybody saw Koepka's disdain for slow play, and Bryson DeChambeau is among the slowest, if not the slowest, which goes without saying. He has 7 different things he does on the shot, visualizing it for 150 yards and in. So he claims he's actually fast, which, okay, shoot your shot, kid. But, it's whatever. Brooks just likes to play fast. And you and I can relate to that. We can't stand slow play in our course because, I mean, 30 seconds or an extra minute of thinking about our shot isn't going to help us. We just want to hit the ball and we'll live with the consequences of the rewards and just play it from there. I mean, slow play is a burden for everybody. And if you're one of those slow play people, shame on you. But regardless of that, I mean, just it's a common issue. Bryson takes a long time over his golf ball. Brooks wants to move on. The fact that Bryson's a character, for better or for worse, some people view it one way, others will view it another way. It only makes it even worse. And then it was just the wrong moment for him to appear in that shot and just have that stuff. It was bad timing all around. And I mean, it was just a victim of circumstance, the whole thing. That being said, it was funny as hell to watch. And credit to Brooks for being a good sport, and credit to DeChambeau for trying to keep this alive. This is Bret Michaels and not Bret Michaels, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels all over again at the good old wrestling at the OK Corral. This is Survivor Series '97 all over again. So I'm enjoying the hell out of this, man.
Yeah, it is very pro wrestling, isn't it? So you should enjoy that. I'll leave most of those references to you, but I did get what you just said.
Except for the Bret Michaels reference. He's from Poison, but you know.
Not Bret Michaels. But,
Shawn Michaels and Bret.
Isn't he from Pittsburgh, though, I think? Yeah.
He is. He is.
So there's that, at least. Do you think that bothers Brooks that this got out? It seems like you don't think that was
no.
He doesn't really care. I think you're probably right. I think Bryson loves it because he's all about clout on social media. My goodness. He just put out an hour-long YouTube video of himself at, I want to say it was at Quail Hollow. It was a recent tour event, and his process, believe me, it is elaborate. I didn't make it through the whole thing, but you know he's always about that.
I did.
We have to, don't spoil the ending for me. I've only gotten halfway through.
Here's the spoiler: Islanders in 6.
Oh God. You had to bring that one up. Yeah, I was just trying to recover and cleanse the palate with some golf talk here.
You're welcome.
So, and I didn't mean to bury the lead, too, because Bryson DeChambeau is playing in another match by Capital One. I think will be carried by Turner again in July, early July. So Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady are going to be paired together again. Remember, they lost to Peyton Manning and Tiger Woods last year, right around this time, in fact. This time DeChambeau is with Aaron Rodgers, who's a pretty darn good player, close to scratch, if not scratch. So that should be fun. I really enjoy the idea of having more of these matches. You and I have discussed this in the past. More variety is always good. And it only makes sense that finally DeChambeau has made his appearance in one of the bigger crowd pleasers on the modern tour. And as we saw at Bay Hill, he can still get the people fired up, even though he's more than a year into his long drive, long distance type of transformation. So we'll leave it at that. I suppose to be continued on Bryson versus Brooks and USGA. Do the right thing. Come on, you got to put them together at Torrey Pines. They really have not played together at all. I wonder if that's been intentional on the PGA Tour side, trying to avoid controversy. Lean into it. Come on. This is golf. Let's get it a little bit fired up here. We got to add some spice to it. And, well, hey, speaking of that, good segue to shot number 4 as we near the green. Fans back in close to full force, at least at the PGA Championship. Clearly, as you mentioned, Zach, they were front and center on the 18th fairway and 18th green. Reminded me of a scene from The Legend of Bagger Vance with everyone crowding around the green, which was actually shot at Kiowa Island, believe it or not. What a coincidence that was. It was maybe the ending scene of Caddyshack, too, just people crowding in and getting on the fringe and closer. So that part of it was fun to watch. I can understand why Phil called it unsettling and why Brooks was pissed off about someone bumping into him. I don't know if I'd like to have just an unrestrained group of people jamming into me as I'm trying to compete and trying to finish up this round, like a mosh pit, basically. But overall, it was a lot of fun to see fans back and be more part of it. We heard the roars when Phil knocks it in from the bunker on the front 9 on Sunday. That moment wouldn't have been half as cool without the fan reaction. So I'm glad we can get back to it. It seems like most states are getting ahead of the game in terms of vaccines. I know PA is going to drop the mask mandate here very soon as we get close to 70% with at least one version of the vaccine. So it's all good stuff. And even though I felt like golf translated pretty well, Zach, without fans, and I enjoyed seeing the entire course without grandstands, without fans taking away some of the surrounding areas on some of these holes and some of these courses. At least taken away from it visually. I'm ready for them to come back, and I'm glad that golf being an outdoor sport should be ahead of most sports when it comes to this.
Well, I mean, I didn't miss mashed potatoes or anything like that,
no,
but
no.
I mean, you
ever hear that one?
I'm sorry, what was that, Matt?
Light the candle. people have been taking to streaming
Yes.
recently. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because even just before we're doing this, the Memorial, which of course is being played next week at Dublin, Ohio, Jack and Jack's place, of course, the newly renovated Muirfield Village Golf Club, they just sent out a press release saying fans that are attending the tournament from June 4th through June 6th, if they are interested, they're offering Johnson & Johnson vaccines. So it is interesting that they're going to try to give fans that are interested that haven't been vaccinated yet, political commentary, pros or cons aside, they're giving them the option of being vaccinated and staying safe. Of course, the tournament now also previously had stated that fans that had been vaccinated do not need to wear the masks. Those are optional. They can choose to do so. Of course, honor system, how that's enforced is another topic, and we're not CNN, so we're not going there either. But it is interesting. I'm glad that we're starting to see as much normalcy as we can now. We are starting to see the fans. You haven't seen the autographs necessarily. You haven't really seen the high fives or even the fist bumps or anything like that. That's when I'll fully get that feeling that, okay, we're fully back, we're 100%. But it's clear that the players, by and large, save for one hole at the major championship, which happened to be the last one, appreciated the fans. It will help also psychologically for if there is a 4 left or a 4 right situation. You will see a lot more trampled down lives, so I'm sure the pros will also appreciate that as that fact as well. But it will be interesting to see how it plays out. Ultimately, fans being there means more money, more sponsorships, more merchandise being sold at tournaments, more prize money for the pros possibly as well. So it's a possibility of success for all circles and all walks of life. And really, that's all you can ask for. I mean, we're still not quite at 100% yet, but I mean, they've already made such a difference. The pros are happy. It's amazing just getting the chance to have fans get a reaction for things that are going on. And maybe if Patrick Reed decides to cheat again, maybe at least there'll be a fan that'll catch it this time. But regardless of everything else, it's always good to see the fans back. The fans that love the game so much. It's a traditional game, but it's a game that brings everybody together from all walks of life and all circles. And really, that's all you can ask for. And we've talked about so many times golf booming during the pandemic. Now we're going to see how many new people come and how seeing their pros and seeing their heroes and seeing their favorites out there, how much retention there's going to be as well. And hopefully what happened with COVID is a step forward where the fans that started to take interest in golf remain interested. Now that's the challenge to see how they can swing that pendulum forward. But I'm eager to see it.
I know that you and I have talked about fans quite a bit over the course of the past year or so. First of all, not being allowed in, and then as we gradually trickle back towards it. And I also know that we don't have a lot of pro tournaments around the area anymore in which you could have a day trip to go out and see it. But if you do get the chance to see a golf tournament, no, you're not going to see every shot. It's not at all like watching on TV. It might be the most disparate experience in sports, in fact, between watching on television and watching live. But it's like an adventure. It's almost like a scavenger hunt. Oh, I want to go see, well, back when it was at Firestone, where's Tiger right now? He's over on 16. Oh, where's Phil? He's over on 5. Brooks is on 10. So we'll watch a few shots here, then we'll double on back. It's a very interactive sporting experience. And you have covered more live events than I have. And I know that sometimes it's hard to keep tabs on what's going on, especially late in a tournament. Most times you'll stick to the media tent just to have that TV type perspective and not miss anything. But even when you are covering it live as a media representative, I think most folks like to get out there. I know you love to walk the course, so it's some small way you can help yourself and your readers or your viewers appreciate the challenges of the course in a way that you really can't in other sports. You're not out there walking on the baseball diamond in the middle of PNC Park during competition, whereas in golf you can actually walk on the same grounds where the players walk, and you can experience the holes physically the same way that they can. So very unique experience there, and you can come pretty close to replicating it as a fan, I would say. So as the opportunities arise again to get back out there, it gets the PGN seal of approval to see a golf tournament live if you haven't, and if you have, you know what we're talking about. Well, is that kind of a weird episode? You are clean shaven. I am not. A bit of a reversal of roles, but this is the playoff beard, as you alluded to. The Penguins are done, so this is coming off tonight as soon as I can get exposure to a razor again. We're both going to be looking suited for the country club here in just a second.
Absolutely. And two quick last-second shout-outs. First of all, to Parker Jackson for what he was able to do with the U.S. Amateur Four Ball, making the semifinals, which also means the next 2 years he'll be able to accomplish that again. Of course, the U.S. Amateur itself is coming to Oakmont Country Club later this year. Mario Lemieux and Jerome Bettis were both announced, I believe, as honorary captains, so they had some kind of role within the tournament.
Oh, okay.
So that'll be interesting. And also, I do have to give a shout-out for what Barstool Golf was able to do this past week, being able to get women whose golf seasons and careers were otherwise going to end in a parking lot because of potentially inclement weather, which the course is playable but not tournament ready. So what they were able to do and put together a tournament where everybody was happy, families were able to zoom in after their rounds from other countries, and just all in all, they turned the frowns upside down. And I know sometimes there's the bad publicity, but what they were able to do for those couple of days and that week and made it special for every last one of those ladies and those coaches and those parents, just I cannot commend them enough. So really good on Barstool and good on Parker as well for another fantastic run in the USGA Championship. Hopefully I will get a chance between either yourself or myself. We'll get a chance to talk to Parker soon. And just Pennsylvania golf again, making some noise in the USGA buzz, Matt.
Yeah, we've got some ball players here. Even Nathan Smith, he was going up against Parker Jackson and his team. Nathan Smith, getting close to 40 at this point. He's played the Masters before, multi-time U.S. mid-amateur winner. He's a member up at Wildwood in McCandless, if you're familiar with that area north of Pittsburgh. So even though he's got a full-time job, he's still keeping that game sharp as a knife. Thanks a lot, Zach. Thanks to you for watching. This has been the PGN Par 4. Hit him straight, or if you can't hit him straight, at least hit him far. That's my advice to you. We'll see you out there on the golf course. Bye.